Source history. Host, Patience, an independent creator from Vietnam. Series history.exe. Episode 03. The Silk Road, a global API with zero encryption. 1. The initialize. Hey everyone, I'm Patience. Before we start, I want to deploy a small truth patch. I'm not a senior developer, I'm not a DevOps wizard, and I'm not a historian. I'm an independent creator from Vietnam, learning in public, collecting public sources, and using AI as part of my research and production workflow. Source history is not an academic lecture. It's a storytelling project where I use systems thinking and software metaphors to inspect history from a modern angle. So when I say the Silk Road was a global API with zero encryption, I don't mean that literally. I mean it as a metaphor. The Silk Road was not one single road. It was a living network of routes, cities, merchants, languages, beliefs, goods, risks, and trust. And like any open network, it had one beautiful problem. Connection came before security. While reading Peter Frankopan's The Silk Roads, I started seeing this network less as a road and more as a protocol layer connecting worlds from the Pacific to the Mediterranean. No central server, no universal rulebook, no global security team. Just people, goods, money, faith, and information moving across a system nobody fully controlled. 2. Global API and the missing shared config. Think of the Silk Road as one massive public API. The Chinese server had access to silk.json. The Roman client kept sending requests for luxury goods, but the system had a problem. No shared global config. Imagine HTTP without shared status codes. Every merchant, ruler, translator, and middleman had to negotiate meaning by hand. This is one reason Rome and China rarely communicated directly. They were connected by demand, but separated by language, distance, politics, and incompatible interfaces. The system only worked when Central Asian intermediaries acted like proxy servers. They carried languages, customs, routes, prices, and trust between different nodes. Persian and Sogdian worked almost like a shared config file, helping different cultures pass each other's data without crashing the connection. And this entire network ran with what I call zero encryption. To be clear, that doesn't mean nobody used secrecy, protection, escorts, or guarded routes. It means there was no universal security layer, no global authority guaranteed safe passage, no shared enforcement protocol protected every packet. If a local power had enough military force, it could intercept the caravan, tax it, redirect it, or destroy it. In modern terms, every trade route carried the risk of a man-in-the-middle attack. 3. Middleware and the SSD paper. Frankopan makes a fascinating point. For long stretches of history, the center of the world was not Europe. The center was Central Asia. These were the middleware nodes of the old world. Not just relay stations for goods, but translation layers for knowledge, money, religion, and technology. One of the most important upgrades was paper. To me, paper was like an early generation SSD, lighter, cheaper, easier to copy, and much more scalable than older storage media. Before paper, storing knowledge on parchment was expensive, heavy, and slow. After paper, libraries, bureaucracies, scholars, merchants, and religious institutions could scale information much faster. This helped cities like Baghdad become massive knowledge hubs. Greek philosophy, Indian mathematics, Persian administration, Chinese technologies, Islamic scholarship, all moving, copying, translating, and recombining across the network. The Silk Road was not just moving silk, it was moving data. 4. Silk Road versus VOC. Now compare that with later commercial empires like the Dutch East India Company, the VOC, or the British East India Company. From a systems perspective, those were private enterprise systems, centralized, hierarchical, heavily armed, and optimized for monopoly. The Silk Road was different. It was closer to an open mesh network. Nobody owned the whole thing. No single company controlled every route. No central dashboard showed the full system status. VOC scaled through seizure, monopoly, and vertical control. The Silk Road scaled because many nodes could join, adapt, and contribute. That does not mean the Silk Road was peaceful or fair. It had violence, exploitation, disease, taxes, raiding, and unequal power. But as a network, it had something proprietary empires often lack: resilience. A company can collapse, a dynasty can fall, a road can become unsafe, but a distributed route network can reroute. That is why the Silk Road, in different forms, kept shaping world history for more than 1,000 years. 5. The maritime refactor. Eventually, parts of the land route became harder for European powers to access and control. The rise of powerful empires, especially the Ottomans, changed the cost and politics of moving goods east and west. In this metaphor, Europe started experiencing more 403 forbidden responses. Not because every route was literally closed, but because the old pathway became more expensive, more contested, and harder to dominate. And when an API endpoint becomes unreliable, the application looks for a fallback. Portuguese and Spanish navigators did not have AI. They did not have Stack Overflow. But they understood the logic of routing. If the land path is blocked, expensive, or controlled by someone else, you search for another endpoint. So they launched Ship DXC. They sailed around the Cape of Good Hope. They crossed the Atlantic. They built maritime routes with higher risk, longer distance, and brutal human consequences. The age of exploration was not just curiosity. It was a system searching for backup routes after the old network became too costly to depend on. And here's the dangerous part. The fallback route eventually became the main route. Sometimes a workaround becomes the new architecture. 6. The interlude. I'm kind of obsessed with the concept of technical debt. In software, technical debt happens when you ship a quick solution now, and the system pays for it later. History has its own version of that. The Silk Road connected the world. But connection without shared protection created risk. Goods moved, ideas moved, religions moved, technologies moved. But so did disease, violence, exploitation, and dependency. That is the cost of an open system without a universal security layer. Admitting I'm a vibe coder is part of my own refactor. I'm not pretending to fully master a 600-page book or the entire history of Eurasian trade. I'm trying to learn in public, to collect sources, to compare systems, to use metaphors carefully, and to make history easier to inspect without flattening it. Source history is not about pretending the past was literally software. It's about asking, what can systems teach us about human behavior? And what can history teach us about the systems we keep building? 7. The final commit. The old Silk Road may have changed form, but the instinct to connect never disappeared. Humans keep building networks, roads, ports, empires, religions, markets, cables, platforms, APIs. Every generation thinks its network is new, but maybe we have always been doing the same thing. sending packets through uncertainty, hoping they arrive, and trusting strangers somewhere along the route. The Silk Road was not just a road. It was a global API before the internet. Open, fragile, powerful, and dangerously undersecured. Thanks for hanging out with a vibe coder like me. Next episode, I'll be debugging a system everyone remembers as one of history's greatest empires, but which also shows the danger of over-engineering, dependency, and single points of failure. The Roman Empire. I'm Patience. See you in the next commit. Status: truthful. Commit pushed.